Hello, fight fans. I am Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com, and with me tonight is a man who is as veteran as it gets in the sport of MMA. Over 52 fights he has fought for promotions like World Series of Fighting, the UFC, Titan FC, even Bush Cree Promotions, which is a fascinating name for promotion. I've never heard of it. He is a vet of the Ultimate Fighter. He's a featherweight finalist from PFL's inaugural season. And this guy only just turned 32 a few months ago. He's younger than me. It blows my mind a little bit. That man is Steven Siler. Steven, thank you for giving me some time tonight, a little over a week before your fight on July 5th at PFL 5.
Perfect. No time. No, thanks for having me.
Now, so you entered the season after a really strong first season, making all the way to the finals, like I mentioned. Without a doubt, you entered year two as one of the favorites for sure, but you lost a tough decision to Gadzi Rabidanov at PFL 2. Before we get into like the technical details of the fight, was losing that fight in May like maybe a bit of like a wake up call surprise at all, since you did so well last year, didn't lose until the finals? Were you almost shocked that you jumped into season one and started off with a tough loss?
Um, yeah, no, I mean, there's bits and pieces. I was motivation wasn't as strong as it was last year. I thought it would be just as easy as it was, and obviously, Gatsby was a lot tougher than I thought he would be. But we all have off nights. That was one of my off nights, and I just got to turn it on for the fight number two, so I can make sure I'm in the playoffs.
So why do you feel that like things change for you? Is it that because we'll get to it in a little bit too. We talked a lot the first time we talked last year how you wear Factory X now and it's made such a difference. Is it just being at Factory X surrounded by top level fighters? Is it almost a pitfall of being at such a good camp and fighting so well that you may sometimes kind of overlook people a little bit?
No, I mean, I don't think it's that. I mean, I think it's just everyone has off nights. I mean, it's just how it is, it's how athletes are. I mean, there's nights where Steph Curry will shoot 3 for 20. I
Yeah.
mean, he's a good player. So I think it's just one of those nights where it just wasn't my night. I was just feeling off everywhere. Just when I was in the ring, just nothing was coming to me. And I've been doing this long enough where I know it's very easy to turn around and just get back on the winning track next fight.
What do you do in a situation like that when, like, because you're the feeling right you're talking about? Was it something like once you got in the cage, once you started moving around, you started feeling off? Was it like, an hour before the fight, you just in the warm ups, things that didn't feel normal? And when that happens, what do you do? Do you like what are you're a veteran. You've been through a ton of fights. You've dealt with it before, like you said. Like, how do you try to counteract with it and get kind of going, so to
I mean, I honestly couldn't tell you.
speak?
It depends on the fight. I mean, I felt motivated in the back. I felt good. And it's like the second he got that first takedown, just like sucked out all my energy. And I heard Mark in the corner tell me to get up and do this and do that. And I just had the attitude is I'll do it here in a little bit. And it's just a little bit never came.
And what, like, since the fight, what have I'm sure you're at a great camp, you have a lot of great people surrounding you and coaches. What did they suggest, or maybe what changes did you kind of or things they want to implement this time around, for the fight? Or really, can you not do anything? Is it a kind of thing, it is what it is, you just you dust it off, you move on, and you just go on to fight too?
I mean, there's definitely some adjustments, but it's actually, I mean, a lot of the adjustments I made, I actually did back in Utah.
Mm.
I was trying to train a lot of the camp out there because I had a baby about a month. I had a baby exactly a month ago,
Oh,
and so instead of
wow.
I've been actually back home with the baby and the family, so I didn't really get to spend a lot of time out here for this camp.
Mm.
But I've been out here long enough where I know what to adjust, and that's why I'm back out here this last week to kind of crisp up myself and get make sure I'm ready for next week.
How do you? I mean, because most people know, especially if you have kids, how difficult those first bunch of months are in terms of sleeping. And we've talked before. You called your wife Superwoman and how she's been great with your kids. And when you went to Colorado, away from Utah to train for last season, how have you been handling it? Has it been taking away a lot from your training? Like you said, you haven't been able to go to Colorado. How have you been training in Utah? Have you gone to your old camp? Have you tried a new camp? Like, when before you went back recently, what have you been doing to stay ready and stay prepared? Because you go from one fight to the next. It's such a quick turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing multiple things. I've been training over at the pit, Salt Lake City, with Ramsey, who's fighting, the same night as I am.
Hmm.
So it kind of worked out good. We kind of worked camp together, and just every we adjusted his schedule around my schedule. So we adjust the whole fight team so I could come at a later time,
Mm-hmm.
and we do the afternoon class together. And then at night, I work out at Wasatch Combat Sports down close to where I'm at. They've been working with my schedule. They actually gave me the key to the gym so I could work out when I need to and do the things I need to do in there. So, I've had multiple places, especially back home, working with me and keeping with my high pay schedule.
Do you feel Steven Siler in, say, March or April of last year would have gotten that kind of, help in turn, not from Ramsey? I know you worked with him before and stuff like that, but do you feel like in a level, because of your heightened presence and status from the PFL being the finals, that are people feeling a little bit more helpful, or people like, here, take the key, is that kind of, what's going on, or these are people you know for a long time already?
People I've known for a long time. Yeah, nothing's really changed.
Yeah.
I mean, PFL has been awesome to me, but I don't think they give me, that kind of notoriety yet.
Now, your opponent at PFL 5, Jeremy Kennedy, suffered a vicious TKO in his first fight this season, and it only lasted 23 seconds. Fans unfamiliar with him really did not get to see much of his skills. Talk to me about, what you've seen when scouting him. Are there any areas you have to be extra careful at all? Because you do have a huge experience advantage over him.
Yeah, yeah. I have experience advantage, but he's had his UFC run. He's done really well. He was undefeated until his Volkanovski fight.
Mm.
And the kid's tough as could be, well rounded. I mean, he's really, really good everywhere. Actually, tall, athletic. He's gonna be a tough opponent. Someone I was actually looking forward to because Gatsy or whatever, I didn't know who he was.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to get up for and get excited to fight. Where Jeremy, he's a bigger name. I mean, I knew who he was. I'm more excited to fight someone as talented as Jeremy is,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I'm looking forward to a fun fight.
Yeah, and I was just about to ask about that. Do you expect it to be a fight filled with fireworks? Because he lost his first fight. You guys, you're both in that place where you're in, but you could, if things don't bounce right, you have to get a win just to make sure you secure a spot. A loss could really be detrimental to your chances against the playoffs. Do you expecting a wild fight and him coming to get it from you?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I do. I expect both of us going out there trying to finish, throw some bombs, play a little bit on the ground. We're both well rounded. We both know we're very good everywhere. So I expect it to be just a good chess match, and the better man will win.
Now, last season, I talked to a lot of fighters, including you, and and Lance Palmer, Andre Harrison, and most of them talked about how the money was pretty good for PFL, and even if you maybe didn't win the finals or you only just got to players, you made pretty good. Do you feel an extra pressure going into this fight, because you know how beneficial last year was to you by getting at least all the way to the finals? To not miss out at least on at the very least on the playoffs, and make sure you at least get those playoff paychecks. Is there pressure now that you didn't feel last year?
Yeah, probably a little bit more because my first fight, I already knew I made the playoffs after that first fight last
Mm-hmm.
year. Where this, obviously a lose, I should be going home. So there's obviously that pressure when to go home, and I think we've seen if you go home, don't make the playoffs, usually they don't bring you back for next year. So this is a huge fight for both me and Jeremy.
Now, you talk to me about Factory X last year, and how much of a difference it's made for you. Now, you just started there right at the very beginning of the PFL season. Now you've had a whole year of going there. I know it's been a little different for this particular fight in terms of the baby, and congratulations to your baby. But talk to me about how much you feel you've changed technically and fight IQ and mentally wise by working at a camp, because they've also, like, Factory X has really grown the prominence even more so in the last year or so, because they've got a lot of fighters in, like, the UFC that are really having big fights and everything like that. Talk to me about how you feel differently right now compared to this time last year.
I definitely feel more prepared. I'm decent coming in, and then going with all these guys, I realized how much work I really needed,
Mm-hmm.
and Mark's been great with that. Working one on ones with me, a lot of drilling, a lot of practices with the working with stand up, but then also my wrestling obviously has been my down point in my career. We've been working with Joe Warren with that. He comes in every
Mm.
Monday, and yeah, he's a pretty good
Yeah.
wrestler. And so yeah, I've been working a lot of my not so strong points. I've definitely been working here to get stronger, and I'm feeling more prepared than ever.
Yeah, and Joe Warren, I mean, he's a special breed. I talked to him once before, fantastic guy, and he's kind of a guy that just still is so talented, even at his age right now. Working with him, and like you mentioned, wrestling is maybe not one of your strong points. What do you do with him that makes it distinct from? Because I'm sure you've been training wrestling your whole life, and in terms of your MMA career, what is different working with him? Do you have to get beat up by him a lot to really take it to the next level? Have you seen measurable differences and improvements in your wrestling by working with him? What makes him unique in terms of a coach and a training partner?
It's just different drills. Like he thinks out of the box quite a bit, and he does focus it squarely on MMA type
Mm.
wrestling. We definitely been drilling a lot more technique, but a lot of different kind of takedowns, a lot of different kind of sprawls. Just kind of get me ready altogether. It's not just me; we do it with the whole team. So the
Mm.
whole team. That's why the whole team's getting better.
Well, we talked a bit previously about your interest in WWE and the first conversation, stuff like that. First, what were your thoughts on Extreme Rules, if you did watch Extreme Rules? And second, your thoughts on them possibly, and not even possibly, they actually are going to go away from PG and less kid friendly. Because when we talked, you said you brought your kids to a WWE event. I'm sure it's a bonding experience. It's an interesting question to ask a parent of WWE fans if they're going away from PG. But first, if you saw Extreme Rules, tell me what you thought.
I've only watched bits and pieces so
Mm-hmm.
far. I can't remember what we did. I have family in town. My dad came up from California for a week.
Okay.
My sister came back, but she's staying for 3 weeks. So we are doing something, I think, at my mom's house. So we didn't really get to watch it. But that night, my son came home. We watched like 3 or 4 of the matches, and he ended up staying up with my dad, watching the rest. While I went to bed. And I do remember the next morning him walking up and telling me, Dad, they showed Lacey Evans' butt or something like that. All right, I kind of heard is going against going away from the PG,
Yeah.
but all right, and I mean that happens, but no, I didn't really get to watch it all yet, even though I did see the spoilers.
Now what? Now at the at and not to spoil you too much. In the main event, there's a point where Baron Corbin hits Becky Lynch with his finisher. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And having to explain that kind of stuff to your kids, or are your kids wise enough like they don't take it too seriously? Like, oh, that's wrestling, and it's not like real life. Like, is that a interesting situation and difficult situation you have to explain one at some point?
I see. I didn't get to explain that either. My wife was watching it and saw that actually happen.
Yeah.
She came back. She goes, "Hey, the boy hit the girl." And my boy knows boys don't touch girls.
Yeah.
He knows that. Even when he plays his little WWE action figures, he never puts the boys and the girls
Mm-hmm.
against each other like that. So I mean, I think he knows better, and I think he knows it's just a show. It's a it's acting,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he knows that for the most part, where he's not going to get too worried about it.
Now, a big story for WWE, and I don't know how diehard of a fan you are. Maybe just casual fans. Like Paul Heyman's going to start running Raw now. Eric Bischoff's going to start running SmackDown. Is that something that you like that news? Are you in depth enough fan that was like a shocking bit of news for you recently, or not so much?
I'm not. I haven't been watching, especially out here, not having cable, so I haven't really seen how much it changed with the TV aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
But those different, they both have different views. With Paul Heyman doing the ECW and Bischoff doing WCW. So I'm interested to see how what routes they go.
Are you at all interested in watching AEW?
It it's I like to. I'll read the results. I'll read what happens and see how interesting it is. It's interesting with whatever his name is.
Dean Ambrose, or
And
formerly Dean Ambrose.
yeah. It's just interesting the way he's going, and then Cody Rhodes seems to be a huge part of things,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to keep up on it, but I haven't watched any of it yet.
Well, I would recommend it at least to check it out once. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, some of the best in the world. They're amazing to watch. But away from that, what are your other personal passions? Away from fighting. Of course, we talked of wrestling a little bit. But of course you have your wife and your kids, and that's a priority, time consuming too. But what are the other things you're into? I mean, are you a Netflix guy? Are you a movie guy? Do you play guitar? Do you're a big cook, or maybe you have a stamp collection, or something interesting that fans will be like, what? Steven Siler does that?
I
Interesting.
don't think there's really too many interesting things. A lot of it is sports. Like I've been loving the free agency in basketball.
Oh,
I'm
what
excited
is
for
your
football.
favorite move then? What was the move that most shocked you? Other than the Knicks, my Knicks disappointing again.
The most shocking, obviously, was the Paul George to the Clippers, and
Yeah.
Kawhi came out of nowhere. I thought Kawhi was going back to Toronto.
Mm.
Seemed like all things was pointing back to that. Obviously, my favorite move. I'm a big Laker fan, so AD coming to the
Mm.
Lakers was huge. I thought they made a lot of good moves, not trying to get another huge free agent. They got some more role players around everybody, so I think that could be beneficial.
Mm.
Westbrook to Houston shocked the hell out of me.
Mm.
I thought he was going to Chicago or Miami.
Did you think
Uh,
Durant will go to Brooklyn?
yeah, actually, I did.
Really?
I didn't. I mean, I thought New York had a chance, but more and more I heard about Kyrie wanting to go to Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
The more I thought, okay,
I saw, and I think I saw maybe somewhere. Oh yeah, I saw like a previous interview. You playing mentioning you play NBA 2K. Are you so? Not only are you a basketball fan of watching the sport, do you play the sport video games? And are you a big video game player?
uh, I'm not really like I don't game online or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but I do play. So I do a day job. I work credit repair from home,
Okay.
where I work on the phones from 6 to 11 Tuesday through Friday.
Mm.
Uh, that time I'm bored about just sitting still. I can't just play on a computer or
Yeah.
whatever. I literally play video games the entire time I'm working.
It's a good
I,
job. MMA fighter,
I
and
do,
that's pretty good work. You're doing pretty good for yourself.
yeah, it's not too bad. And when I first got my boy when he was born, I kind of sold my PS4 off because I figured I wouldn't be playing with video
Mm-hmm.
games. But once I got the day job back, it just made sense, and now he loves playing it with me.
Okay.
Where he loves playing with WWE 2K, and then before he wakes up, I'll play either like FIFA, MLB The
Mm.
Show, NBA. It depends on what season it is. I kind of play at that route.
What is your go-to character when you're playing against your son in 2K, WWE 2K?
I don't get a play. I don't play against him. He's only 5. He don't like. He doesn't really like. Like when he does play, he gets frustrating when he starts losing. He makes me take over for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've created like a new player every day so far. We've had like 40 mid players. Some of them most random people who watches a bunch of YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the two guys that you watch, Game City or Play City or Kid City or something like that. And they create people, so he wants to create the same guys like they are,
Mm-hmm.
and so he likes playing different characters like that. But for the most part, he either likes watching the matches or watches me when the matches for him.